All right, hello everyone. This is Tom King. I'll be doing Chapter 5, Conflicts of Responsibility from The Responsible Administrator by Terry L. Cooper. Let's just jump right into it here. So Cooper says, as public administrators, we have a responsibility to act on behalf of citizens. When that happens, though, we do have some conflicts that happen. Conflicts among interests, which would be personal interests, organizational interests, public interests. We also have a conflict among various sources of authority. So organizational superiors, political officials, and laws, right? So let's take a look here. The three most common conflicts of administrative responsibility, Cooper says conflicts of authority, role conflicts, and conflicts of interest. Now, we really think of conflicts of interest all the time working in public service. Conflict of authority, not so much, and then role conflicts, I really hadn't thought about that either. So let's take a look at both of those. So conflicts of authority, conflicts between two or more objective responsibilities imposed on administrators by two or more sources of authority. So the conflicts of authority you have, basically, we've all had this before. One boss telling us to do something one way, another boss telling us to do something another way, and then you may have a law telling you to do it another way. So conflicts of authority. So all those things culminate sometimes. We've got to make tough decisions and address them. So one example that the book Cooper puts in there is the major, the captain, and Corporal Montague. Now, I was in the military too, and so this kind of hits home. You see conflicts like this a lot, not just in the military, but in all public services. So you put yourself in this person's shoes, what would you do type situation. So you're a first lieutenant, your boss is a captain, and his boss is a major. An office manager position comes open under your supervision. Now, both the captain and the major come to you independently, asking you to have Corporal Montague fill that position. Right, so that already raises a red flag for me anyway. Right, so why are these guys coming to me asking me to take him, both of my bosses, or take her rather? So, Major, Captain, and Corporal Montague. You're not impressed by Corporal Montague's interview. Seems like she's lacking some motivation, some communication skills, and some interpersonal skills that you think is necessary for that position. So you're not seeing what the captain and the major saw, but you trust their judgment and you give the position to Corporal Montague anyway. So taking a look at her and you're watching her, and you're paying attention, she's doing okay, but she needs a lot of coaching. And so the conflict with the captain and the major, and then you have conflict regulations. So here's what it boils down to. Corporal Montague was having a relationship with both the captain and the major independently of each other, right? There's those red flags. What's going on? Captain and Montague break up, and the captain is asking for you to do an early review so you can transfer her out from your supervision. Well, you just asked me to get her, now you want me to transfer her back out. Great. Okay. And then the major's asking you to write an evaluation early. That's highly positive, just to keep her on, Again, other inappropriate stuff going on there, but not for you to say anything at the moment. Conflict with regulations. So you're supposed to do an evaluation after 3 months, and it's only been 1 month. So you really shouldn't be doing an evaluation either way, whether good or bad or indifferent. And the reason it's that way is because you're supposed to provide evaluative comments, constructive advice during the evaluation period. So you really can't do anything at the moment anyway. So what do? You're stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? Remember when I said two bosses telling you to do two different things, and then you got a regulation telling you to do something else. So here's some options that the book gives you. So possible courses of action, right? And basically what it boils down to is some of these are good, some of them are bad, some of them are, number 5, go to the colonel, next up the chain of command, ask him to intervene. That could kill your career, essentially. So what are you really going to do? Something I've done in the past is I've asked for those orders in writing. So number 6 would be something I possibly would do. Um, Captain, yes, sir, please send me your order. Or Major, please send me your order. I'll follow through as ordered. Simply refuse in writing the orders both superior officers with references to Corporal Montague performance, progress, and promise, and to appropriate sections of the personnel regulations. And so you have to look at this and say, um, should I say what I need to say, or should I say what I need to say? So sometimes you're between a rock and a hard place. The next one is role conflicts. So public administrator experiences values associated with particular roles as incompatible or mutually exclusive in a given situation. So you're serving a role as an administrator, but you also have other roles outside of that position that may come in conflict with decisions you're trying to make. So inside rules versus outside rules, politics and toilets. It's a great title, isn't it? So you're a public health officer for a municipal health department. It's the city of Micro. You're a supervisory unit that does inspections for restaurants, food markets, food processing plants, and sanitation facilities for larger public buildings. So the city has a revenue problem, and the city's council believes a large concert will help with this problem. The concert is taking place on the edge of town, and you're tasked with determining what public health services are required. So you meet with the promoter, and the promoter is not happy about your recommendation. One toilet for every 50 people. It's an industry standard. I'm going to talk about that here in a second. That would be 10,000 porta pots for about 500,000 expected visitors. Now, the promoter suggests one toilet for every 300 people. And he also disagrees with all the other health standard issues that you suggest, like the food and the water trucks, medical tents, and personnel for medical tents. So, so you also have another role in this scenario. You have an outside role as a member of the National Public Health Association, the NPHA. And so you help create these industry standards that you're recommending to this promoter, right? So your professional integrity may be at stake if you compromise that at all. But you also work for a city of Micro as a public health employee, so you're accountable to your boss, and your boss really wants you to make this happen in some way, shape, or form. So as the boss, your boss is receiving pressure from the city council to make the concert happen because they're having these revenue problems. So what's the big issue? So what do you do? Do you allow the concert to happen or not? I don't know. That's tough to decide. You can make some concessions, but again, any concessions that you make, they're going to hurt your integrity or your reputation on NPHA. So those role conflicts will come into play from time to time. And that one was for inside and outside roles. This one was looking at inside versus inside roles. The title of it was Raising Salaries or Raising Hell. So you're a new lieutenant on the county sheriff's office. You're tasked with doing merit reviews for employees you supervise for step increases, and you have no control over the cost of living increase. Now, the cost of living increase will be lower than what the staff is expecting, and they're going to be upset about it. Now, keep in mind, you used to work with all these people, but now you're supervising them. So some of the staff are union members, and they'll be real vocal about the lower raise, okay? So they're going to be raising some hell. Now, this may increase the union's ranks, which the sheriff sees as a sign of weak management, meaning you. So, these folks that are going to be vocal that work for you are going to try to recruit other members because of this lower raises that are coming. And if they do join, then that shows weak management on your part. At least that's what the sheriff thinks. So an inside rule versus inside rule. So you're a new lieutenant. You have loyalty to your bosses, the sheriff and the hierarchy, right? You're expected to convey that information to your staff that you supervise like it's your own. You don't have a choice here, right? And you don't, because you don't make those decisions. And you can't make any problems because they're really sizing you up right now because you're a new lieutenant. So they will evaluate you accordingly. Your other inside role is loyalty to your staff you supervise, right? You want them to respect you. Now, you used to work with them, so they expect you to be their spokesperson and supervision for them. And they also want you to represent their interests and fight for their needs and their families. So how do you handle this dilemma and maintain your integrity with both the staff, your staff and the sheriff? It's tough sometimes. So you have to balance that middle management role sometimes, and it's tough. Some people are better at it than others. I know I struggled for a while with this, and those are those inside rules. Um, how do you supervise and keep folks happy? Somebody's going to be disappointed, right? Better to disappoint some people on one side than the other. So the possible consequences of role conflicts as we move up in the organizational ladder. Cooper says a general moral deterioration has manifested in frustration and the ability to make decisions. All those things are role conflicts as possible consequences of role conflict. So people may just give up, right? They say, I can't do these decisions anymore. Supervision is not for everybody, right? As they move up the organizational ladder, we've seen that too. So development of the ability to construct alternative measures that satisfy immediate desires or requirements without violating state codes. That's what a lot of people will go with. You have to be creative sometimes. What else can I do to solve this problem without harming anybody, and especially my own integrity? So the design approach that Cooper has to administrative ethics is an acquired skill, just like anything else. So you have to practice it in order to get better at it. So Cooper says a clear understanding of the obtainable facts relevant to the situation, what's going on. An understanding of the roles involved, including the codes or value subsystems that guide each role's enactment. So what motivates these folks and what are their roles? Consideration of all possible alternatives. So you can go this way, go this way. What are some other ways you can go? What other decisions can you make? A wide-ranging imaginative projection of the consequences of each alternative, that is, in ways that your role and other roles would be affected. So what can happen with all these decisions? An attempt to anticipate how you feel about yourself if you adopted each alternative. So if I make this decision, am I going to be able to sleep at night? That's what I ask myself. And if I can't do it, then I'm like, I got to make a different decision. And then a consideration of how you would justify each alternative to a broad public audience. We always have to consider public perception when we're making decisions. Private industry has the luxury of not having to do that on a regular basis. We do not in public service a lot of the time. We have to consider that public perception. And then the most common conflicts that we can think of are conflicts of interest when we're as public administrators. So when we talk about situations where our personal interests are at odds with our obligations as public officials or professional values. So public administrators have special access to government, and most ordinary citizens do not. This access is a temptation for a lot of people to exploit resources for their personal gain. And it happens. We see it in the news all the time. We've seen it in our organizations. Let's take a look at what some of them are. So Cooper talks about all these conflicts of interest, talks about bribery, influence peddling, information peddling, financial transactions, gifts and entertainment, outside employment, future employment, and dealings with relatives. So let's talk about each one. When we talk about briberies, it's pretty common that people know about. I don't know if it's common throughout public service, I certainly know of some cases, and I think we all do. But it's the illegal acceptance of money or other valuable considerations in exchange for special favors for public service having to do with their official duties. So, uh, whether it be sexual favors, promise of favor, publicity, offers to access to exclusive social circles. So it may not just be money; it could be something else. In return, giving them access to whatever they do for government. Influence peddling. Public employees attempt to influence a government decision, so it favors a third party in which an employee has interest. So, employee stands at a high chance of significant gain, or beyond economic worst case, it could be religious beliefs or racial ideology. So, you know, I'm going to make this decision on city council because I have this certain religious belief. I'm going to make this certain decision as the mayor because I have certain racial ideologies, or whatever the case may be. It's influence peddling based on what you believe. Information peddling. So public officials are privy to confidential information, and so they could sell that information and peddle that to people that would be personal gain for. So selling a portion of property on a certain side of town, public does not have access to that information yet, but you sell it to a certain person that wants first dibs on it. Financial transactions, again, transactions that you know public service may have official access to, and then the official has direct effect on the outcome of the transaction for personal gain. Gifts and entertainment. They talk to us about this all the time. We can't accept gifts from people. If we do, it has to be, you know, moderate in value. It has to be less than $20. I think it is what they say. Nominal in value is what they say. I apologize. So, examples, other examples besides money could be theater tickets, sex, vacation trips, use of vehicles, lavish meals, recreational equipment, and different expensive liquors or whatnot. So, and then outside employment. So part-time employment, consulting, contractual retainers, and self-employment may cause a conflict of interest with official duties. We have to report if we have any side businesses or outside employment to our employer to let them know what we're doing. It has to be approved by our supervisor. Just make sure it doesn't create any conflicts of interest with our official duties. Future employment. So, if you plan on becoming a consultant, something like that, I think there's a waiting period of 3 years when you retire from state service in Ohio that you have to wait to do any business with the state. If you were to be employed by an agency, or not an agency, but a public company, private organization that does business with the state. So you have that waiting period. So there's no conflict of interest. Dealings with relatives. So situations where public administrator may be in position to do favors for a relative. We talk about nepotism and stuff, so you should be supervising, your people that are family members of yours. But the other portion is, can you do favors in government for family members as opposed to regular citizens? You shouldn't be doing that either. Again, using your position for personal gain. So Cooper says we have the responsibility of maintaining public trust, right? We can't jeopardize the integrity of the institution. We have to consider public perceptions at all times. So how would they perceive this decision? And then ultimately, we should have higher moral standards as a public agency. than any private company should have. Not saying that private companies shouldn't have high moral standards. They should, but as a public organization, we are serving the public, and so we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard than anybody else, in my opinion. And that's what Cooper says as well. So my response to the material, hey, you see my Fonzie there? Hey, there you go, 2 thumbs up. So I believe the entire text is well written. It's one of the better books that we've had for this, for the Masters of Public Administration. Chapter 5 was pretty good. That's why I chose it. I like to read about those different conflicts, the different examples that they give. Were very thought provoking, and I think some of them are going to be very helpful in the future. That sheriff office example was pretty close to something I dealt with, especially having a lot of union members working for me at that time. So sometimes it can get difficult, and you have to make solid decisions and stick by them. So here are my questions. I'm going to post them along with my post. So what course of action would you take in the major, the Captain and the Corporal Montague dilemma? That'd be the first one we talked about. What is the biggest role conflict you've ever had in your professional experience? And what is the most difficult conflict of interest you've ever faced personally in your career thus far? So, they're kind of generic questions, so they give you a lot of room to talk about some different things, pretty open. So, if there's any questions, if you want to, comment on this, be really appreciated. And hopefully you got something out of it. Thank you and take care. Bye-bye.